am Jason,
I'm Carol.
and this is the Weekly Vomit.
Today's rant, mandates.
Mandates. We're not talking about men who date. No, wrong room. Mandates.
We are talking about mandates.
All right. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and pop up the definition real quick. I think you did that last week.
Yeah.
So everyone we're clear what a mandate. So it is an official order or commission to do something, or two, the authority to carry out a policy or course of action regarded as given by the electorate to a candidate or party that is victorious in an election. So we could probably start with the obvious mandate, or we could start with other kinds of mandates.
I personally think we should go back and kind of like mandates just sort of popped up out of nowhere, but they've actually
Right.
been around for a long time. It's
Sure,
not
they were called
unusual.
other things.
Yeah. So it's definitely it's not something that's, it's a historical thing. And that's not to say if I'm pro or against it, just that it's a historical thing.
Well, first
You
of
know
all,
what I mean?
it is system, but they were called edicts at some point, or if you're in a kind of a dictatorship, then it's just a directive. I mean, whatever kind of, I think coding or whatever you want to call it, I think that a mandate is just a form of control. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's simply you're trying to get a bunch of, whether it's your population or your kingdom or whatever, to comply with a specific order, whatever that might be. It doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
whether it's everything from, medicines, jabs to wearing a helmet. I mean, in any way, a law is kind of a mandate, right?
Right. Now you can go and say, I mean, as I'm going through just sort of listening to you and looking through articles, I'm finding articles that are saying vaccines have saved the country and other articles that maybe not so much. So, it just depends on what you look at and what the mandate is about. It appears that mandates are generally used for vaccines.
It is in this country because we call it a law. Other than that, I mean, it's like you could say that, the speed limit says you have to drive 55. You are actually mandated to go 55 miles per hour, right? But it is also a law. A group of individuals has come together and said, hey, this is going to be the law for this particular region area. We adopt it, whatever. So when you look at for mandates, and let's get into that real quick. So laws, right? Laws are little, at least this is how I see them. I see them as rules that keep people protected from each other. For instance, if you drive drunk, the possibility of you crashing and killing someone is higher. So there's a law that says you can't drink and drive. Until cars
Mm-hmm.
drive themselves and you no longer need to be driving, you usurp the law all the time. You take an Uber, you take a cab, you just don't drive. So laws are supposed to protect us from each other, protect my rights, protect your rights, and protect us from each other. So then why not just make a law, let's say, out of the JEP, if that's what we're going to say? Why not just make it a law? Why call it a mandate? Why not just make a law?
Well, you can't really make a law forcing people to put something into their body without
Right.
having an uprising.
So generally, if laws
Because,
are supposed to protect you and someone else, if you could prove that what you're telling people that you're putting into their body is not harmful, if you could prove that, I mean, and we know what that means, but if you could actually technically prove that, right, then how is it if they can sell it on the good of the many outweighs the needs of the few? If you do that, then how can you can say that it's safe? You could make a law around it. I guess you could try. I just don't think you'd get
well,
people in movement.
yeah, then you're starting to get into the realm of brown shirts, at some point. Now I have one article up here that says, remember, mandates are not laws. I'm just reading an article. Anything that goes against the Constitution of the United States and or laws on record do not supersede the law.
Mm-hmm.
That's for example, an official such as a mayor or governor can mandate that all people who wear blue on Mondays be enslaved. That mandate is illegal, absurd, and against the Constitution. Now, who the hell would mandate something like that? But
Right.
The 13th Amendment and the Emancipation Proclamation supersede the mandates that are enslaving us. So if you were to mandate, then you can only push so far before you get to a point of dictatorship.
Well, so, right. I mean, once it becomes, that's what I'm saying. So laws are generally voted on by the body, whatever that body might be. If it's, a legislature of some sort, whether it's the local or the state level or the federal level. So it's to legislate in that way kind of makes sense. Now, I absolutely see why it would be unlawful to attempt something like what we're doing with current attempting mandates for the jab and things like that. Is because it's unproven. I mean, it hasn't followed the proper protocol. It's not even an approved drug. So if we're talking about that, it falls way out of scope for me anyway, right away, because it's not, you couldn't make a law for something that has no legs in the long run, well, as far as it's standing up. Now, a mandate, though, is a little bit different, right? It's kind of like a weaker law. So maybe you just say, oh, we'll just call this a mandate. It's kind of like, when they do the NDAA and the Patriot Act, they're like little shortcuts to the Constitution that have to be voted on every now and then. So to me, it seems like a watered down law that they can say, well, we just needed to do that.
And a lot of people are claiming that it's a violation of the amendments. So which amendment is it a violation against? According to this article, the 14th Amendment. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So where in that, what we need to see is where in that does a mandate, whether it be for a vaccine or a mask or you have to wear pants when you go in a store. I don't care what your mandate is.
Right.
Where is that violating the 14th Amendment? If we can nail down where that is a violation, obviously.
Well, like no shirts, no shoes, no service.
Right.
But I mean,
but why do I have to wear shoes?
Why exactly?
So why do I need to wear shoes in your store?
Right. Well, exactly. See, that's the no shirt, remember, no shirt, no shoes, no service, because I believe that falls into a business can dictate what they want in their business. That at least they used to be able to do that. So they can say, hey, I don't want you here, period. You have to leave. This is a private business. But I guess it could also be, you could call it a sanitary issue a little bit, right? With no shoes, no shirt, I kind of get that. You're not, but then again, you go to beach communities all the time and they're running in with flip flops and half naked. So, I mean, where do you draw the line on that? But I don't see that actually. Well, I take that back. I'll bet you in places like here in Santa Monica and stuff, they probably actually have a law that says you have to wear shirts and shoes in order to go into a restaurant. But there are most places it's just loose. They leave it up to the proprietor to decide what they want to do.
Right. And if you're going to go on, then, the problem with a mandate is that when a mandate first of all, most mandates in general are pretty tyrannical.
Yeah.
There's somebody saying without due process of the law. Well, clearly we don't have due process of the law here. And the Supreme Court just ruled against those mandates. So there's your due process. But the problem is that he still came on. He came on today and said that he thought the Supreme Court was wrong. And the rest of it I couldn't understand a word he said. But and I couldn't stay on there anyway.
right.
because I can't
Effectively,
listen to it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, me either. Effectively, and it's just gibberish that comes out of that man's mouth anyway. But
Yeah.
effectively, laws and mandates are the same thing. I mean, the only difference being is how they're created. So if we have a law is legislated. So it's again through a body. A mandate is generally enacted by an executive branch of some sort. So if it's like the mayor of a city or the governor of a state or something like that, they can mandate, or the president of the United States, but they're limited in their authority based on what it says their branch of government can do at any level. But they're effectively the same thing. So one is very dictator oriented, right? At least, like, and then the other is obviously more collectively thought out because it's a group of people legislating a decision. You toss it back and forth. So in essence, you should think in some ways that mandates should not be something that we should be for in any shape or form at all.
Well, I think in some cases now, if we go back to the beginning of this, which was what, March 2020,
Earlier than that, January of 2020, really, we were hearing about it, but yeah.
right? If we go back to the beginning of this, when they said 2 weeks to stop the spread,
Slow
mandated
the spread, right?
6 feet away, wear your mask, and that's the mandate. Now, according to what I'm reading here, a mandate is very quick. They make it right away, and a law takes a
Right,
long time. It's legislated, it goes through, which is kind of what you were saying, right?
right,
If they had done the mandate and used it correctly and said, okay, 2 weeks to stop the spread, we're good. We're now coming out with a vaccine. Get it if you want, or don't. And if they went over the original, we only need so many people to get the vaccine. Then we have herd immunity. And if they mentioned, natural immunity and all this stuff, then that mandate, the original mandate, would have been used correctly and probably might have even been helpful. But the fact that we are now over 2 years into 2 weeks to stop the spread,
right, exactly.
I think somewhere in there, something got confused.
Well,
And
again, this is this
unfortunately,
is this is anything you give government fucks it up. I mean, they can't even screw in a light bulb without shorting out the entire grid and then charging everybody 100 times more than what it would cost to just have anyone screwed in. So, I mean, you in one ways we can't. I don't think we can expect that much federal organization. Period. And also, I think that government, at least the federal government and all politicians, every single one of them, are working so hard to play an angle on this that they're worried about the angle that they're going to play more than actually performing some public health initiatives that may actually stop or slow the spread. So while you're trying to make both things work, it's kind of like that movie, Don't Look Up. The similar thing where, yeah, there's a big crisis, Lancaster, but wait, how can we use this to help us and make it work? So while you're busy trying to formulate all this shit, right? There are people getting sick, and this is potentially getting out of control. So, I I think that here's where we see mandates actually working in some way. If you look at how certain states individually handled the pandemic, you can see states like Florida and California who have almost identical numbers when it comes to how they handled uh, Rona. Okay,
mhm,
but
mhm.
the big difference being is that Florida's economy hasn't been shut down, and the state of California has yet to actually feel the repercussions of half of the restaurants being closed in the Southland and industries and agriculture having to burn, just give away or burn or destroy food. They're killing cattle in fields and stuff. There's all kinds of stuff has screwed this up. So, you know, we are supposed to be a nation that runs with states' rights, right?
Well,
So if some did it right and
yeah,
some did it wrong, does that mean some people are going to are there going to be any lessons learned, or is everyone just going to keep doubling down? That's what I
I,
want to
I
know.
guess, I guess we're going to wait and see. I mean, for starters, you have, well, first of all, I'm not sure if you read it today, but England is going to drop all their mandates by like
Oh,
March, all of them.
that's what they say. All of them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to
Okay,
drop.
so
They're
this trial
dropping.
run is over. Okay.
They're
All right.
dropping the vaccine mandate. They're dropping the mask mandate. They're dropping it. So,
Okay.
and I heard Scotland is as well, because well,
Okay.
England and Scotland are kind of in cahoots with each other.
Now it'll make
Um,
us. I'm very curious to see what happens to Canada then, because most of that is still part of the English crown. They're still part of the monarchy. I'm really curious to see how many colonial British colonial cities come, fall suit or fall into that. If it's just England and Scotland and those areas right there, local. Okay, let's see. However,
well, there's
I am on
it's
the
good.
bandwagon of thinking this was a trial run anyway, so they got 2 years out
Yes,
of it.
I am too. That's why I'm going off the grid. But but we still have. I don't even. We still have Sleepy Joe in there talking about we still need him. So it's
Well, look, so the funny thing about it is that they constantly double down these days, because if they did, they'd have to admit that they were wrong at some level, and their egos are just far too large in order to do that. So they figure if we just slowly change the narrative, then we'll believe what we're currently saying. Like for instance, they've gone from the mandate the mandate 14-day mandate, which is a quarantine period, went from 14 to 10 to 5 days. So now they can at some point say, oh well, we lowered it, we did that. No one will remember. Like it's like no one remembers when Tony Fauci went and said, "Oh, you can wear a mask if you want," but it's probably not giving you the kind of protection that you think it is. And then 2, 3 weeks later, we're double, triple. You need to wear this, da 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 da. So this Mickey Mouse back and forth shit is just, I mean, look, they've done what they're going to do. I think that they've learned what they're going to learn in all of this for this
Mhm.
particular trial run. Um, but just relinquishing mandates just means that let me just let's present a hypothetical. What do you think would happen if, okay, so by spring, out of winter, mandates are rolling down, the laws are sort of kind of coming back to normal pre-COVID, but not really because everyone's still freaked out. Okay. Uh, what happens, let's say, a year from then? So in the spring or in the winter, the beginning of the winter of 2023, all of a sudden there's a new flu that's deadly, and it looks like it's going to be the new big. How quickly do you think people are going to be on board for mandates this time? Is
They're
enough
gonna.
enough?
Well, I mean, mm, if we're if we're making the assumption, if we're assuming that all of the people who followed said mandate this time will still be in existence in this time, which
A
would
year from
be
now, right?
a year from now. I mean, if you're talking about a year from now, and I would say that the people who ran off and followed that mandate will be, they won't even have to be told to do it. They'll just start doing
Exactly.
it on their own.
I agree with you. I
But
agree with you.
then I would say that you have a problem, because that's going to be a much smaller percentage of the people than they probably think it is.
Well, if the percentage of the people kind of remains the same, it feels like it's like a 70-30 proposition. The Milgram experiment just kind of still holds true. But here's the thing. So, we've been around, as Gen Xers, when 9/11 happened 20 years ago, and the
Mhm.
post 9/11 world is drastically different than the pre 9/11 world. So, before 9/11, you still got to say hi to the pilot. You didn't have to take half your clothes off. You're allowed to take liquids on the plane. I mean, they got this down. And mind you, guys, they've been not making fun of, but bringing light to terrorism on planes. You've disappeared. I can't see you.
Oh, that was
There you go.
weird.
Yeah, you
Okay.
disappeared. They've been kind of, even if you watch the movie Airplane from the early 80s, they're making kind of fun or light of the whole terrorist thing on planes. So it's
Mhm.
not like it's a new thing when 9/11 happened. But my point is the post 9/11 world never went away. So any control, they formed the TSA, they formed Homeland Security, all these two brand new economic on the government payroll. So increasing the size of government, and now none of that went away. The post-COVID world is not going away. They're
Nope.
not going
It's
to relinquish anything that they've almost everything except the Second Amendment has been affected. Your right to free speech, your right to freedom of religion, all of these things has been knocked into question for a disease that's 99% survivable. So what happens if someone comes down and says, "Oh well, this one's got a 30% mortality rate"? Well, shit. We already had the COVID run. We know what happened with that. So
nobody's
I
going to
just
believe. Well, that's what's going to be so interesting is only the people who watched particular news channels are going and who's believe to this day. I'm still seeing videos of Karen and Kevin on there with 6 masks on, yelling at people
right,
in stores
right,
because they truly believe that there are just people left and right dropping dead from this.
yeah,
Those people are still going to continue to believe that in if a future thing comes up, whereas the rest of us, many of us who had it and went, are going to be
right,
like, yeah, right, sure, sure, whatever, bring it on.
yeah. And we say this, guys,
Because
but we have had it, both of us. Just so you know, we've both
yeah,
had.
we both
Rona
had
has had a visit at our homes.
it. Mhm.
So, you
Not
know,
only did I have it, but I gave it to my whole household, with the exception of the baby who was in the house the whole time and never got it,
I
which
never
is
got it.
just bizarre, just bizarre.
No, I guess
So,
not, right? That, you know,
mhm.
but,
But the problem is that mandates are meant to be a quick thing and then stop. Now that they've had it for 2 years, that's why it went whole to the Supreme Court, because they're trying to make it into a law. Well, lo and behold, that's not what's happening.
well, thank
And
God
we've
for
seen
that.
what's
But
yeah, and we've seen what's happening now with Carhartt and some other brands who are saying, well, we don't care. Which what I found ironic is I heard that Starbucks, which is the ultra leftist of all leftist big money making,
sure,
owns every coffee shop and
sure,
eats up the biggest coffee Pac-Man on the planet,
yeah. This country had
dropped
no
their
idea what this country had no
yeah.
idea what coffee really was till Starbucks showed up. But
Oh,
yeah,
we
go on.
did. We went to
Well,
the
we had coffee
small coffee
shops,
shops,
small coffee shops that
but
served coffee, but now there's an
yeah,
espresso on every corner.
yeah.
So
But that they dropped their vax mandate, and meanwhile, Carhartt, which is
Carhartt,
supported only
yeah,
Carhartt supported by farmers,
yeah,
by industrial
read that,
workers, by people like me,
yeah,
patriots,
yeah.
enforced their
It's just
vaccine
screwed
mandate
them off,
anyway,
enforcing it
and
anyway. Oh,
screwed themselves off.
yeah.
They've lost, so like companies are dropping them. Like, I'm not going to sell your stuff. So you never know. You just never ever know what's going to happen with these
'Cause
things.
again, we forget that these major companies are run by individuals that um, are human at some level, right? I mean,
Mhm.
so they've got an opinion and an approach, and they want to make sure that they're loyal to their brand. And I think almost every probably CEO wants to try to come out on the right side of history on this one, but
Right.
it's a fucking guess gamble. No one knows what the hell it's going to be because for every 5 people I can tell you it's going to go one way, you can find 5 experts to tell you it's going to go the other way. So you're really kind of taking a 50-50 shot here on as to whether or not, you're going to end up on the right side. Now, in this country, I think if you're a betting person, right? Um, I would bet on the Constitution every single time, and I would try to decipher my decision based on the Constitution and the longevity of people's individual rights. If you do that, then you would not enforce stupid laws like this. So,
Which is
uh,
why you have companies that are huge like Starbucks. Starbucks, even though they're ultra left,
yeah,
in
yeah,
every way, shape, or form,
every way.
those CEOs are not stupid. They're like, whatever, drop the mandate because we will lose customers. Because
Yeah.
basically, if you enforce
They're
the
going to lose
mandate,
too many employees.
not just employees, but half of their,
Yeah,
I mean, I buy coffee at Starbucks and I'm a patriot, which I shouldn't even be buying it there, but there's
yeah.
nothing else out here um,
It's liquid
that
piss.
sells decaffeinated coffee. So
Right.
there, you people, what you have to as a business realize is that yes, there are some Democrats and liberals that do have a lot of money. But a big majority of that side are young people that don't have a lot of money. Where's the money coming from? It's coming from the blue collar workers. And a lot of them, although not all of them, but a lot of them are the ones who are spending the money and earning the money. They're the ones who are raising, raising the food, raising the cattle. They're the ones who,
Yeah.
so you have to be very careful with what you do. And that's why I think Carhartt, oops.
Yeah, bad decision. It's gonna, and I think you'll see a reversal on that as soon as their numbers begin to plummet. Look, money talks and bullshit walks. My uncle used to always say that, and it's so true. You want to get to the truth of anything, follow the money. So ultimately, what's going to happen is Carhartt sales will go down, and when they do, then they'll reverse their decision. They'll quietly do it. It'll be a little blip on the news. No one will know any difference. They might make a big difference. It's just it's just ridiculous. It's like the doctors that are standing here right now saying, okay, so wait a minute. We just got done firing a bunch of nurses and doctors because they didn't want to get jabbed. And now we're telling people that they can come in and work, even if they test positive with Rona, and give them 5 days. How does that make any sense? How does it make any sense that you just got rid of a bunch of healthy people who've worked the entire damn 2 years on this? And these, you wonder why the American people feel like they're just, it's like no one knows what the hell to believe. And common sense in this country is something that's absolutely lost. So you can't expect people to fall back on common sense. They don't have it.
Nope. Nope.
So
They
this
don't.
is a perfect recipe for disaster. And mandates, look, certain things maybe right from the beginning. I'm kind of leaning towards not having something like that at all. They obviously can't make them work at any level of government. It's a joke because they're worried more about their own power than they are about the actual mandate itself. So I say get the fuck rid of them, and it shouldn't be something we should even be allowed to do. Let the states run the states individually, period. And the federal government needs to just stay out of it. I mean, even Sleepy Joe himself said there is no national federal solution for this problem. Okay.
Well, at
Okay.
some point, at some point, I mean, it's off the subject, but at some point, everyone on any side has got to admit that we are going to have to tear down and reorganize our government if we want to maintain the republic of the United States. So,
Yeah.
because obviously, I mean, and this is not the first regime to do this, but this particular regime um, is ignoring the fact that we even have a constitution or a bill of rights.
Well, the
I mean,
problem with our
I've
country,
never heard them.
the problem is the career politician, because a
Mhm.
career politician puts their own interests first and the country's interests second. That's kind of goes against what serving is all about. So it's
Mhm.
not serving at all. It's serving your own self-interest, if that's what you want to call it. But that's what they're doing. So I
Well,
mean, how do we resolve that? Well, we first thing we do as people is put term limits in place. We'll solve it over a
not
short
just
period of
term
time.
limits, but age limits as well.
Yeah, I think that goes hand in hand. All the oldies that are in there didn't get in old. They've been there for 40 fucking years. They started when they were in their 30s. So,
Yeah, and why have we as Americans allowed
mhm,
this to go on? Why have
I
we
know. I
allowed?
think I think I know exactly why. Distraction. Okay. Well, first of all, if you look at American Western society, the way we live for the last 50 years, so everything I would say after the Korean War, the mid 50s forward, okay? Everything has been about growth, surplus, and the American dream. So if you pump the American dream as hard as you can, and more people are doing better than are doing bad, then it's a distraction. And why rock the boat? Our generation tried to rock the boat, but there weren't enough of us. And our baby boomer parents just said, fuck off. We're going to tell you what we want to do anyway. So
Mhm.
they didn't want to rock the boat either because now they're going into retirement. They don't want anything to change. Don't start messing with what I've worked for or with for my family. So it's a complacency that's been built into the system. And because it's got to the point where no one gives two shits about who's elected, okay? As long as things stay the same, it's okay, just let it go. They do what they want. And politicians have been backdooring legislation and crap for the last 50 years.
Well, if you,
It's much in the same way that when Cheeto slipped in the UFO thing into
Mhm.
the bill, they do that all the time. So you got a bill that's got this many pages in it, and right in the middle is something that you don't know about. But then again, there's a senator wants a bridge in his freaking town, and they want this in their town, and they got to do this for this constituency, so that they can go back to them and say, "Hey, look what I did for you," using American tax dollars. It's fucked up.
well, here's the problem with that now. The problem is definitely Generation X, and I'll tell you why. So we grew up, we kind of got born just right at the end of a war, so we weren't really whatever. I mean, Vietnam was still going on when I was born, but you know, I was a baby, whatever. We really didn't have
Yeah,
anything. And then our baby boomer parents told us, work at the same company for a long time, get retirement. This is how you do it. You buy a house, you have a family, you work at the same place, you get a career, you go to college, and then you build up your retirement and then you retire. And baby boomers, a lot of them did that. But what happened during our generation is we had a big giant crash. And lots of people's retirement got taken away. Their 401k got
yeah,
taken away. Their careers got taken away.
yeah.
And we went, well, that was fucked up. So if you're like me, you went, well, I don't care if I have a house because or retirement because they can take all that fucking shit away from me. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna live my life to the best of my ability until I fucking die. And if you don't like it, I don't care what you think. So now I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna live off the grid, and
But
everything's fucked up.
just on that
I'm
though,
just gonna
a
fight
lot
for
of
it.
our generation, so they say the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. So I have a
Mhm.
lot of my generation, our generation that I grew up with. And we're friends still on Facebook and other platforms and things like that, just
Mhm.
to kind of stay in touch from for a long time now, right? Well, a lot of them did do exactly what our parents did, but it was albeit a little bit more difficult for them to do. I think what you're saying, which is interesting to me, is because the biggest, the I would say millennials drag is the fact that they even got a shittier stick than we did as far as being twice the number of our generation in population, and even more further having of the jobs. So you've got the whole thing: go to school, get an education, get a piece of paper that says that you've got this, that, and the other, and you'll be able to get a job. Well, the corporatocracy of America has kind of prevented that because there's only so many jobs, but then you've got places like Starbucks, so you probably got more well-educated, at least on paper, people working retail jobs than ever before. When we were kids, retail jobs were people who didn't go to school. And if you
Mhm.
did go to school, you still might, or if it's a career, like if you started, if I'd gone to school to be a doctor or a lawyer,
Mhm.
which was big in my family, then that might have been a little bit different. I chose to go into entertainment, but it was still more opportunity for me when I was younger than there is for generations now. And that's
Mhm.
because the workforce keeps getting smaller and smaller. But when we're looking, I mean, we're digressing just a little bit because, I mean, because you could talk about mandates in the workplace, for instance. Like you have mandated to wear a uniform. Like we're just talking about working. What if you didn't really want to wear that uniform, but you have no choice, or you don't get the job? It is a
Yeah,
mandate.
I have to.
It's part of it.
I have to. I have to wear a
Yeah.
mask at my work, although we often they fall off our face and stay off our face for a while if nobody's around. Um, and within reason, and I have to wear a collared shirt, and if I decide I want to be an assistant manager, and I'm one of those people who I have multiple college degrees and I work in retail.
Yeah. This is the brilliant part about, if I have to say anything, I don't think it's Sleepy Joe who's coordinating it. He's just the puppet who's the the face of it. But
Mhm.
but I do think that they know. I think they've known from the beginning that this was all going to get shut down from the Supreme Court. This is just advanced bully pulpit maneuvering, where the president comes out and says, "We're finding a way that we can make a mandate for this." Message, message, message to everyone out there. Attention, you need to start mandates on your own. And then you've got corporations, not all of them, but a lot of them, Carhartt, saying, we're going to institute the mandate, and they can legally do so. There's absolutely nothing that you can do against it. However, I have thought of some clever things that I've read and thought are very clever. One of them is like for people who have a little bit more power. I have a friend of mine who happens to be a skateboarder, and he has contracts with large companies like clothing manufacturer companies and things like that. And
Mhm.
they just notified him that he's going to have to get rent, rent, or else they're going to drop him. This is like a 10-year relationship. So for people like that, you have a little more leverage. But I would say something or have your attorney say something to the effect, okay, I'll do this, rent, rent, I'll do it. But
Mhm.
you as the company are going to be fully responsible for any effects of this, medically or otherwise. And if it kills me, you're going to pay out my survivorship like 10-20 million dollars or something, and then I'll go get it. I guess what I'm saying is people need to start putting a price on what that means to them, and they still may end up being axed anyway, but at least there's a record of you saying, I tried to negotiate, you didn't want to negotiate. And it
Mhm.
does actually, under OSHA, it does say that if an employer does ask you to do anything that endangers your life, that they are responsible for the repercussion of that action. So you can hold it against them at some level.
Well,
So
but in all fairness of this particular conversation, uh, there are people out there and employees out there and coworkers out there that are 100% for mandates. So you have that issue is another issue that we have to look at and say, what about these people? What about these people? So you can't have the conversation about mandates. I mean, you have the definition, you have the history. We know there's been a long history of it. We know that Dr. Fauci wrote a report all the way back to the Spanish flu, wherein they had mask mandates, and that's how we knew that masks didn't work because he sat there and wrote a whole report on it.
yeah, he did.
But you, huh? And
He did. I mean, and they've
yeah,
also found as a result of that, they know that upwards of potentially half of the people who died in that pandemic died from a secondary infection. So they cleared the initial flu virus, but because they were forced to cover their face, they developed secondary bacteriological infections, and they had no antibiotics back then. And people died of bacteriological pneumonia. So they didn't know the difference. The effects would be relatively the same. You'd basically just not be able to breathe, your lungs would fill with fluid and you would die. So, it comes down to, there was just another study that was released about, because you're talking about the mandates of mask mandates on children. They're like, when children are learning now, when children learn, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, when they're in school, they're learning visual cues off of other humans, whether it's their friends in the play art or their teachers. We often say, and then that person looked at me with this look. Well, there's a difference. Here's the look, and then here's the look. It's like if you cover someone's face, you're missing a lot of visual cues. So
mhm.
they're saying there's going to be a developmental deficiency in children, uh, and they don't know what that's going to be in the long run, especially in an age of with electronic, with being able to social media and connectivity, and how does that long term play out? My biggest concern is that because they don't like to let things go ever, like post 9/11, and now it's post COVID, the rules and the laws, does this just continue? I mean, I actually
Well,
foresee a day in the summer where even people who are still living in California are still going to have to get jabbed to go to a fucking restaurant. Why?
it's possible, but that's, I mean, first of all, to go back to what you're saying with development, I mean, I think there's already a marked developmental issue with Generation Z due to the fact that they were raised almost completely on technology. And so their world is entirely different. They have lived sort of in the half fantasy world of the internet. So it will be interesting to see what this does to the generations below them,
Yeah, yeah,
number one. But that's a conversation for another show.
yeah.
But I think in the long run, what's going to happen is that states like New York, California, um, maybe Oregon, Washington, things like that, are going to maintain their mandates for as
I
long
think
as
so
they
too.
possibly can,
I think
or
so too.
until they uprising happens, or unless they do release something that that you know
I think they're going to
really
lift.
does kill people.
I think in California, what they will lift, because they've lifted it once before already, will be the mask mandate. They will lift that. They will. That wasn't not that long ago that they lifted it. It was only lifted for 2 weeks before Delta hit, and then they all went back into place again. But they did lift. There was a moment. There was where
Not
you
in
could walk
Orange
in.
County. Depends on what
It
county
was
you're
in LA.
in.
It was in
LA
LA
County.
County. They
Orange
lifted
County
them.
has gone for months.
Yeah, this wasn't though. This was just only for a couple of weeks. I'm saying in LA, but I'm saying they had.
We can't
Is
hear you.
I don't think they're going to get rid of the. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Can you
now
hear
we
me
can
now?
hear you, but I couldn't hear you before.
Okay, that's weird. I was gonna say, so I'll just go back just a little bit. I don't think that they've lifted the mask mandate before, so I do think that they're going to lift it again. But I don't think they're going to lift the vaccine mandate. They'll say to the public that, hey, we'll lift the mask because the enough people or more people are still getting vaccinated. But that will be their reasoning for not getting rid of their vaccine mandates, is because they'll lift the mask one. Again, it makes no sense. It follows no science at all, but it still doesn't change the fact that there are many people who just can't go do anything. They can't even go get a fucking haircut if they don't have a vaccine card, and it just makes no
Well,
sense. I just don't think they're going to take those things away,
well,
and it's going to be to
then
the detriment of places
it
like Southern
doesn't matter.
California, where economy
Yeah,
is a mess.
there's no. First of all, most people don't even consider, unfortunately, and I'm a Californian too originally.
Yeah,
Most people don't even consider California a part of the United States anymore. It's just laughing
I know,
stock.
I know,
And
I
number
know, I
two,
know.
if people choose to stay in California with all that shit going on, then that's their own detriment, because you can leave.
That's true.
And if all the red people left California, the whole state would crumble to the ground.
Yeah.
It would
Well,
crumble to the ground.
Well,
So
here's the catch 22 behind all this is they've lied so hardcore, all of them, and doubled down on all those lies, that to remove any of them, like I was shocked when they came out and said accepted half the people here and in many liberal states are shocked at the 5 day mandate from the quarantine from 10 to 5 days. So that's and it just kind of creates a short circuit up here, because how do you justify that? How do you use logic to explain that? It makes no sense. And there are many things like that. So how are you going to circle back on all of this, as Jen Psaki would say? She drives me nuts. Fucking circle back Psaki. Poor girl. Listen, I mean, she, she probably has one of the hardest jobs like on the planet right now. Having to answer for that puppet, I have no idea how you do that with a straight face every single day and just not lose your shit. I mean, I would quit. But either way, I just think that they have a hard time going back and talking about this stuff, because it means they have to eat crow. And you know who eats crow the worst? Liberals. because they come from a place of moral superiority. So it's very, I know my family used to be very liberal. No one likes to eat crow, but they eat it the worst.
Well, I mean, I mean, if you're gonna bring up teriyaki, she doesn't really belong in that position anyway.
No, she's not
It's
doing
not.
that bad of a job considering, though. I
Oh my
mean,
God! I
it's
mean,
bad, but
if you put her next to Kylie, she's a disaster.
oh, you
She's
can't
a
even
complete
compare the two.
disaster.
They're apples and oranges. I mean, they're apples and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. They're not even the same. I mean,
Right.
no, she was sharp. Kylie McEnany, right? Isn't that her last name? McEnany? Kylie
Yeah.
McEnany. She was
Yeah.
sharp. You could not get anything past her, and she would just be like, bam, bam. You can see inside the backs. You can see the backs of, what do you call her? Teriyaki,
Yeah.
Jansaki teriyaki. You can see like through her eyeballs. She's freaking out. Like she's like, I'm just not going to talk about that right now. You're like, okay. Wasn't there a question you're supposed to answer though?
You can't just. Oh, I'm just.
We're not really
Hey,
thinking
Carol.
about that right now.
Hey, Carol, how old are you? Next subject. No, you
Next
can't.
subject. No,
You
we
can't do
decided that
that.
we aren't going to talk about that right now. Yeah, yeah. I'll circle back on that one. Next question. I'll circle back on your age.
I mean,
She's a
it's just,
mess.
it's ridiculous. So, I mean, but I mean, without getting deep into the conspiracy theories of what's really going on here, because, I mean, let's face it, we know what's really going on here, and it doesn't have anything to do with really our government. I mean, you're talking about a much larger span of what's going on here. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even think the United States right now is actually even being run from within the United States. I think it's being run remotely. And I don't
Well,
even know.
it's definitely being shot remotely because he doesn't do press conferences or he doesn't do anything in the White House. He's got some little studio that he likes to use. That jet flew over supposedly flew over the White House about a month and a half ago, and that's a no-fly zone if you're in the White House. So I mean, there's a lot of here's the thing about it though, and I can go 50-50 on this, right? But like as far as conspiracy or actual logic, so many politicians are disconnected, terribly disconnected. Like I remember prior to Trump during Obama's reign, right? There was this whole thing about the gays in Chick-fil-A, and it was during I think the beginning of what?
I remember that.
Yeah, yeah. The Me Too thing. It was the Me Too thing was going on, and everything was like that was the biggest thing, and it was all about like branding and like, oh, if these guys are anti-gay because they hate gay people and they're closed on Sundays and they da 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 da. And then I remember that's when the House did this was when they weren't in power or something, and they did a sit out or something, a sit in, and they all sat in the chambers, right? But not forever because they were all going to go home by Sunday anyway because they need to catch flights back to their home fucking states. But what did they order in while they were in their sit-in in in-house chambers? Chick-fil-A. So this is what I kind of mean, and I kind of attribute like I honestly think the right hand sometimes doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And I sometimes believe that they just make stupid decisions and double down on shit and they don't even realize it. Like for instance, like when the plane flew over, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what, just admit it. Just tell us where you're at if that's the case. You know, but don't assume that everyone on the planet or everyone in the United States is stupid. They do that a lot. They've got big heads. So I think that's also another reason why they think they can make things like mandates and everyone's just going to go with it or get the messaging and do it because they've been told. That's a lot of people, but that's not everyone. Look out. Look out. They're pretty good at juggling, but they often drop the ball.
Right.
And the other side is really kind of, you know, Democrats tend to be better actors than Republicans. Republicans kind of look like deers in headlights when they get busted, and Democrats are just kind of like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. No, that's nonsense. I love the
Yeah.
gays. Next show. I hate the
I,
gays.
I
You
did.
know.
I really did enjoy though watching Biden blame everything on Mitch McConnell today.
Oh Lord,
Why
Mitch.
of all the people you pick is the rhino? Like we don't
Yeah.
even like it.
No.
We
No.
don't like it either. It's the only
No.
thing me and Joe agree on. I don't like Joe Biden, and I don't like Mitch McConnell either.
No, no. If you're look, all of them, they can all take. If you're over 70, 75 in government, you need to go. You just need to go because you didn't get elected at 70. I guarantee it. And there's a good chance you didn't get reelected at 65 or 60 either. So you've probably been there for 15, 20 years. Get
Yeah.
out. You need to be making decisions that relate to the people, and we need to change the idea of a career politician. Term limits do that. The moment you enact the term limit law, when you go, you only know you've got like a certain amount of shots to get it right, and then you're done. That's it.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
maybe your focus might change just a little bit. Maybe even corporations might not give you as much money to politicians anymore because they know it's a limited deal. You may only get 10 years out of them. That might not be enough. These guys, when you're a company now, when you look at big companies, they don't look 10 years down the line. They look 50. They look 100. They want to know how they can survive long when you're a big company. So
Right.
just change that game. They'll never do it. The existing body will never do it. That's cutting their nose off your own face.
Well,
They'll never.
especially people
And
like, especially Pelosi. You know how much money that woman
uh,
is rolling in right now with her stock market, all the stuff she's not supposed to be doing. She's doing it, and she doesn't care that
let's
she's doing
mandate
it.
her.
She's not even.
She needs to be
She's
mandated
not. Yeah,
in
she's
all
not
ways.
even hiding that
Mandated,
she's doing
mandated.
it because she knows nobody
Mess.
will do anything to her because she is
No.
so
Yeah.
thinks she's
Powerful.
so above everyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally, I heard this article, this interview with this, it was a lady talking, and she was some kind of a doctor. Now, this is what I find ironic. She was a natural doctor. And here she was helping one of the richest women ever in existence on the planet. Like, she's so rich, we don't even, like, there are rich people, and then there are rich people who are so rich, we don't even know who they are because they're
Right.
so rich that they would get killed just for being that rich. So she's
Right.
helping one of them with her natural medicine because rich people know that natural medicine is better than petroleum based.
Of course. It just doesn't make that much
And the
money.
lady says,
Yeah.
and the lady says, we're going to get rid of 90% of the useless eaters, and then we're going to sit there with our money, and we're only going to have our servants and something else, some other kind of servient, and everybody else is going to be gone. And so you better be good at doing a job, and you better save some money, because if you want to make it and stay alive in the new world that they're planning, you have to make yourself useful to be one of their servants. Because and Pelosi, that's the attitude she has. She thinks she is so above the rest of us.
Right. Well, what did she say? I saw that same video. She said that we've gone from the mercantile era to the feudal era. The feudal era being more like an oligarchy. So, I mean, I the crazy part about that is it's believable as hell, and that is like, so like Pelosi believes she's untouchable. In fact, when they were talking about when they were doing the investigations on the insurrection January 6th, that apparently it's you can look this up. Cheeto wrote an order to have the National Guard deployed. I think it was 20 days prior to the event. There's a certain time limit you have to do it in. But because the executive branch exists within the district, it doesn't control it. It still needed to go to the Speaker of the House for approval and to the Mayor of DC in order for approval. And neither of them approved it 20 days before. So you're looking at, so they were saying, okay, if that's We know, yeah, we know that. But the point would be is about the untouchable part. She's untouchable. They will not question her. They will not call her to stand. They will not ask her any of those questions under oath. She will not be part of the investigation, even though she was 100% control of the situation and is. It's part of her job. People have to remember the Speaker of the House is third in line for presidency, I believe, right? It goes president, vice president, then speaker. I think it goes right down to the Speaker of the House. If they're both knocked out, the Speaker of the House becomes president of the United States. So she's not that far off. And I can see how her delusions of grandeur have gotten to her being in office for so many years.
Technically, if something happens to the president, then the vice president becomes the president and gets to choose another vice president, which would
right.
probably
I'm saying if they're both
either
killed.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's not going to happen because.
Well, it might have the other day when they both stepped off of Air Force One. Both the president and vice president walked off of Air Force One together. That plane could have been taken out with one missile, and Nancy Pelosi would be president of the United States. I mean, you know, that's how it works.
Right? I mean, the second that somebody like Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton becomes the president is the very second we have an uprising in this country. It could never happen because people will not put up with that. We're not going to be like, oh, okay, Nancy Pelosi's the no.
Can you imagine? No. I can't.
It's bad enough who we have.
If it's no, President Pelosi. Oh God! Just shoot us all. Where are those guillotines? I'll stick my head in and pull the trigger myself.
Can you imagine President Pelosi?
No. Yeah.
What you did?
There's a funny girl on TikTok. Have you seen that woman? Have you seen that woman on TikTok? I don't know her name, but she does that fast thing and makes fun of Nancy Pelosi. It's hilarious. Yeah, she does Pelosi so well with the crooked eyebrows and it's all a mess. So I just, you know, this is, we need octennials is what they were calling them. I think people who are 80 and older. And I think Pelosi is 80 or older. That is someone who wants to rule with an iron fist. She would mandate the hell. Okay, so you could look at like the National Defense Authorization Act, and then you could look at the Patriot Act. Those are mandates because they're not laws. They're temporary. They have to be voted on every 4 years in order to keep them. And if they go away, then they go away and everything that goes with them. But we've been voting on the Patriot Act every 4 years since 2002, whenever they came out with that, which was relatively quick. And then now the NDAA, since the middle of Obama's administration, they keep the National Defense Authorization Act. They keep voting for those. So anyone who continues to vote for things like that take away our rights, those are mandates. Those people should be fired. And they're all old people.
Well, looks like we're all going to find out what happens.
Just so Nancy Pelosi can stay in and rake the stock market at 65%. She's doing better than most investors, like a lot.
Yeah, because she has insider trading.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I think Peter Doocy of Fox actually asked her the question straight up. Do you think that people who serve should be able to play the stock market? And her response was that this is a free democracy, a free country. It is and everyone should be able to participate, even if you've got inside information, which is obviously she's cleaned house during the pandemic because she knew exactly what she needed to. Her husband made like millions. He's making millions of dollars a month playing the market.
And I wonder what other things.
I
just wonder what other things that pandemic distraction was really for. I guess we're going to find out as time goes on. History always reveals itself eventually.
The time always reveals. You just put a little time between things and then things won't add up simply because of the time. And speaking of time, it looks like we've got just about a minute to go on the
Yeah.
show. It's about to click over. But yeah, look, we'll just end it with this. Mandates are a fucking joke, and things like the Patriot Act and any law that's not created by a legislative branch or a group of your peers is a joke. Period.
Mm-hmm.
We should just, they don't work, and government can't do anything right. So there's no reason to give any people that kind of power. Right.
Right. So in
All right.
summary, mandates suck.
Mandates suck, in summary. And that's it for today's show. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. It's awesome.
Yes.
Huh? It's just
Thank you,
nice
guys.
to hang out and chat about things. We really appreciate it. All right. And we're here every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern. That's it, right?
If you missed the show, if you guys missed the show, you can find us at The Weekly Vomit on YouTube, The Weekly Vomit on Telegram, and The Weekly Vomit on Brighteon. I upload the episode usually Monday or Tuesday, so you can go back. If you missed last week's and the weeks before, you can go there right now and watch the original episode 1 and episode 2, and next week's episode will be uploaded by Tuesday, so you guys can always watch us on those 3 channels. Subscribe, and merch is coming.
Merch is coming. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Thanks, guys. Good night.